Okay, let's unpack this. Today, May 29th, it's got some specific historical weight, doesn't it?
It really does. You think about this day in 1999, Olusegun Obasanjo becoming civilian president.
Right, after 16 years of military rule. Huge moment.
Or even way back, 1953, Mount Everest. Hilary Norgay, the first successful ascent.
Yeah, fixed points in time. But what does this May 29th, decades later, actually look like? Especially when you look through, well, this stack of today's sources we've got.
Exactly. And it's quite a mix we have here. Mostly headlines, notes from Nigerian newspapers, but also some global stuff, even a few interesting facts thrown in.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is basically to cut through all that volume, pull out the key nuggets. We want to give you a quick but, well-informed snapshot of what's happening across different areas: economy, government, security.
Social issues, global links, even some trivia, yeah.
And find those sort of surprising connections, or maybe just the complexities that emerge when you put it all together.
And we'll go through it together. Like, I can bring some context and try to synthesize things.
And I'll bring the curiosity, asking the questions you might be thinking yourself as we sift through this.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, so with this pile of information, where do we start to get that snapshot? Let's maybe begin with the national pulse. Economy and governance seem like the big headlines.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if you connect a few dots here, you get the government's perspective. President Tinubu's midterm assessment, for instance, he's saying security and the economy are improving under his watch.
And there are others backing that up. I see a note here quoting Kalu saying, Tinubu actually saved the economy from collapse. Strong words.
It is strong. But what's interesting when you put these sources side by side is the contrast. You've got Kalu's take, but then there's also former President Buhari. He hails Tinubu, sure, but urges people to moderate expectations.
So right away you see it's not one simple story. Even among top figures, there are different framings of the economic picture.
Exactly. It shows you the complexity straight off.
Okay, digging into more concrete plans. What about borrowing? There's mention of a $1.23 billion external borrowing plan for 2025. Seems relatively modest.
It does, compared to some past figures, perhaps. But domestically, there's this other item that really jumps out: the Debt Management Office, the DMO, and their N300 billion sukuk.
Ah, yes, the Sharia-compliant bond. What's the story there?
Well, the story is the interest it generated. Huge interest.
How huge are we talking?
The sources say it pulled in over N2.2 trillion in subscriptions.
Oh! Wait, N2.2 trillion for a N300 billion offer?
Yep, that's a 735% oversubscription. The reports are calling it record-breaking for this kind of instrument in Nigeria.
Wow. Okay, so that definitely suggests, what, a lot of domestic money looking for a place to go? Or confidence in that specific bond?
Could be a mix of both, Available liquidity, maybe confidence in the DMO's offering. Even amidst all the other economic discussions happening, it's significant.
And then there's planned spending. I see a note about a N45,000 monthly stipend for technical college students. That's quite specific.
It is. A targeted intervention. Seems aimed at skills development.
We're also seeing a lot of budget activity in these notes, right, at different levels.
Yeah, quite a bit. Rivers State's budget, a big one, and $1.48 trillion. It's passed the second reading in the Senate.
And the source notes this is happening under emergency rule conditions regarding the state assembly.
That's the context provided, yes.
Yeah.
Important detail. Then, the Senate also passed the FCT budget for 2025 and $1.8 trillion, and approved the Police Trust Fund's 2024 budget and $124.2 billion.
Okay, so massive sums moving through the system, trillions of naira, which brings up the question of where the money comes from beyond borrowing. Internally generated revenue, IGR.
Right. And we see mixed signals there, too. Delta State reported a big jump in IGR from N83 billion up to N158 billion in 2024. That's substantial growth.
And in Lagos.
The Physical Planning Authority, LASPPA, they registered about 3,800 service providers, generated N3.5 billion. So activity there.
But it's not all smooth sailing on revenue?
Apparently not. There's a note about the FCT minister, Wyke, saying his biggest challenge in Abuja is simply getting residents to pay taxes.
Basic tax compliance. Wow.
Yeah, and he's warning about a likely ground rent hike, too. So you see this contrast. Growth in some places, struggles with fundamentals in others. It gives you a more, let's say, textured view of public finances than just the big budget headlines.
Makes sense. What about other financial items? I see Emefiele mentioned.
Yes, the former CBN governor. He's reportedly appealing that final forfeiture order on a large housing estate, 753 units. That legal battle continues.
And a warning from the SEC.
Right. The Securities and Exchange Commission is flagging an unregistered investment scheme called Silvercoon, telling Nigerians to be wary. That's, a crucial consumer alert tucked away in the news.
Good to know. Policy-wise, anything jump out?
Well, NERC, the electricity regulator, they put out guidelines on third-party electricity bill collections. Might change how people pay their power bills. And the Energy Commission of Nigeria is quoted saying, Tinubu's reforms are aimed at tackling the energy sector's debt crisis. And looking further out, Nigeria and Germany are reviewing a draft hydrogen policy.
Hydrogen. Okay, so that's definitely future-focused energy planning.
Seems so. Points towards potential new directions.
All right, let's shift gears slightly.
Yeah.
Politics and government structure. Senate President Akpabio constituting standing committees.
Yeah, for several regional development commissions. SSDC, SEDC, NWDC, SWDC, SEC, NCDC, covering all the main geopolitical zones, basically. It's about legislative oversight for these bodies.
Interesting. And how does that fit with other political notes? There seems to be some tension reported.
Definitely. The presidency is pushing back hard against accusations that Tinubu is trying to create a one-party system, calling it nonsense, according to one source.
But at the same time,
you see reports of political maneuvering, like an ally of Peter Obi from the Labour Party, reportedly switching to APC, specifically to work for Tinubu's re-election in 2027.
Okay, so movement between parties and the PDP.
They're apparently upset about their secretariat still being closed, saying there was a presidential order to reopen it that hasn't been followed through. So yeah, lots of push and pull in the political sphere.
And state-level politics, quick mentions.
Governor Ayedatiwa in Ondo setting up an anti-land grabbing task force. Edo state government is considering amnesty for cultists and those with illegal arms. Specific local responses to local problems.
And a birthday greeting.
Yes. President Tinubu wishing Governor Abiodun of Ogun a happy 65th birthday. Political courtesies still happen.
Okay. Let's move on from economy and governance. What about security, safety, the justice system? That's always a major area of focus.
It is. And unfortunately, the sources start with a pretty grim security incident. 4 herders and their cattle killed in fresh attacks in Plateau State.
Right. A stark reminder that challenges are ongoing, whatever the broader narratives might be.
Exactly. And when you look at the official responses and reporting on security, it gets, well, complicated. The Senate is asking for more security presence at the borders of Taraba, Bauchi, and Plateau, a direct reaction to incidents like the one in Plateau. Makes sense.
What?
But then you have the National Security Advisor, the NSA, reportedly disputing an Amnesty International report. Amnesty claimed 10,000 killed in violence. The NSA says that figure is false.
Okay, conflicting reports there.
And at the same time, the theater commander for the Northwest is quoted saying that region is actually safer now than before.
So how do you reconcile those? Increased security calls, denials of high casualty figures, and claims of improved safety all at once.
It's tough, right? It really highlights how difficult it can be to get a single, clear, universally accepted picture of the security situation on the ground. Depends who you ask, which report you read.
What about law enforcement actions? Arrests mentioned.
Yes, a few notes. The military reportedly arrested 4 Pakistanis over alleged terror links. In Kano, 127 foreign nationals were arrested, alleged cybercrimes and other things.
And the NSCDC, the Civil Defense Corps.
They reportedly sealed a Chinese security firm and 6 others in Abuja. Seems like a check on operational standards or licensing for private security outfits.
Turning to the courts and legal system. Nnamdi Kanu's case.
A DSS witness reportedly testified that Kanu admitted smuggling a radio transmitter into Nigeria. That's a specific claim in that ongoing trial.
And a TikToker jailed.
Yes, in Kano, Murjakunya. Got 6 months for Naira abuse.
Which usually means spraying money at parties, that sort of thing.
Typically, yeah. Improper handling of the currency. It's interesting to see that law applied, especially with behaviors often seen online.
Any other legal cases catching the eye?
Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan says she's ready for trial, but is also calling for the police to investigate Akpabio and Bello. So, demands for investigation there. Bielsa State is seeking justice for a 26-year-old who was killed. A range of ongoing issues.
And unfortunately, some very serious crime reports, too.
Yes, some really disturbing ones. A pastor in Rivers arrested for allegedly defiling a 10-year-old. A Lagos farmer jailed 14 years for defiling his own daughter.
Horrific.
And this discovery in Enugu, underground pits where a ritualist allegedly buried victims alive. Just incredibly dark stuff reported.
Beyond crime, any other safety notes? Like accidents?
Sadly, yes. The recovery of bodies of 3 family members from that collapsed building at Lagos highlights the ongoing risks with structural safety.
But some proactive steps, too.
Yes, on a positive note, the federal government presented 3,500 life jackets to the Lagos Waterways Authority. That's a direct response to past boat accidents, trying to improve safety.
Good to see. And Bauchi.
Bauchi State is establishing 10 more fire stations, building up emergency response infrastructure.
Okay. Let's shift again. What about social issues, education, development efforts? What did the sources pick up there?
Education had a headline that definitely makes you pause. Over 4,000 teachers reportedly failed a national qualifying exam.
4,000. Wow. That raises big questions about, well, teacher standards, or maybe the exam itself, doesn't it?
It certainly does, and on a more practical level, there's a report from Osun State. Students and teachers there are complaining about WAEC exam timings.
The big West African exams, what's the issue?
Some papers are apparently scheduled so late they run into nightfall, which obviously creates logistical and safety concerns. Just a practical challenge of running massive exams.
But some positive education news, too.
Yes. The NUC National Universities Commission accredited several key programs like medicine and law at Benson Idahosa University. That's important for the institution.
And an individual success story.
Yeah, a really nice one. A teenager got a university scholarship and an N5 million for their creativity. Great to see talent being recognized and supported like that.
What about broader social issues?
The First Lady was active, campaigning to end period poverty tied to Menstrual Hygiene Day, raising awareness on an important health and dignity issue.
That's positive, but hardship stories, too.
Yes, there's a very poignant note about a spinal cord patient seeking help, lamenting 22 years of hardship. It's a stark reminder of the deep, long-term struggles some individuals face, often outside the main headlines.
And development initiatives. Job creation.
The federal government unveiled a digital village in an Abuja community, providing free internet access, a specific tech-focused project.
Okay. Any state-level job programs?
Akwa Ibom is planning an initiative aiming to benefit 30,000 youths. And up in the Northeast, the NEDC commissioned 13 different projects in Borno State. So ongoing development work there.
Got it. Any unusual local items?
A couple caught my eye. In Oyo State, a Catholic church was apparently sealed and fined 500,000 naira for sewage disposal problems.
Really? Environmental enforcement hitting a church?
Seems so. And in Ogun State, athletes were protesting over delayed allowances from the National Sports Festival.
Ah, the classic issue in a Nigerian sports admin.
Pretty much. And the state government reportedly wasn't too sympathetic, calling the athletes impatient. Shows that friction.
Anything else local?
Lagos state government reportedly spent N$8.5 billion sponsoring cultural festivals. Significant investment in arts and culture. And on a business note, Quali Gas, a Nigerian company, received an honor in China. International recognition there.
Okay, let's widen the lens now. Nigeria's global connections, international notes from the sources. ECOWAS seemed prominent.
Yeah, ECOWAS was definitely in the news. For one, the summit happening in Lagos caused major traffic jams, a very real local impact of hosting these big regional meetings.
And it's a big anniversary for them.
Exactly, 50 years. So you had President Tinubu calling for unity among the member states, and former head of state Gowon appealing for the countries that recently left the bloc to come back.
What about former President Buhari?
He cited a medical reason for not attending the anniversary event.
And a historical correction popped up.
Yes, quite useful. A source clarified that ECOWAS was actually set up on May 28, 1975, and its first headquarters was in Lagos, not Abuja. Good to get those historical details right.
Definitely. What about Nigerians abroad or immigration issues?
There's a report that Nigerians are among those affected by Canada announcing a new cap on immigration. That could impact people's plans.
And people coming into Nigeria.
A report mentioned over 100,000 Cameroonians and other asylum seekers are currently in Nigeria. Highlights Nigeria's role as a host nation, for people fleeing conflict or persecution.
And our diplomatic missions.
The House of Representatives is apparently concerned about the state of Nigerian missions in America, raising an alarm, the source said. That affects services for Nigerians overseas and our image.
But a positive story, too, from Maka.
Yes, a really uplifting one. A Nigerian pilgrim found and returned N$8.2 million in missing money to its owner, who was Russian. Great example of honesty.
That's wonderful. Any other significant global notes?
A sad one. The passing of the great African writer Chigewa Ifyongo at 87. A huge loss for literature, truly a giant.
Indeed, and an economic shift noted.
Yeah, a report claims South Africa has now overtaken Nigeria as Africa's top importer of fuel. That's a notable change in regional energy dynamics.
Interesting. And quick mentions of other world news?
A few bits. Elon Musk apparently exiting a U.S. government role after a disagreement with Trump. Student visas being suspended in the U.S. amid Harvard protests linked to Trump's policies. And the government in Chile proposing to legalize abortion. Just snapshots of other global events making headlines.
Okay. So finally, rounding things out, we have sports and those interesting facts.
Right. Sports first. The Super Eagles beat Ghana 2-1. It was the Unity Cup match in London. Dissers got one of the goals.
Always good to get a win against Ghana.
Always. And then the did you know facts. First one's geological.
Okay.
About 75% of all the Earth's volcanoes are located in this horseshoe shape around the Pacific Ocean.
Ah, the Ring of Fire.
That's the one. And it's also where about 90% of earthquakes happen, too. Just a massive zone of activity.
Incredible power under our feet. And the other fact was about fruit.
Yeah, the black sapote. It's a fruit from Central and South America. And apparently it tastes like chocolate and sweet custard.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Chocolate custard fruit. That sounds amazing. What do I sign up?
Huh. Adds a bit of unexpected flavor to the day's news, doesn't it?
It really does. So thinking back over everything we've just touched on, it's such a huge range, isn't it?
Absolutely. From multi-trillion Naira budgets and claims of economic progress.
Right through to specific security incidents, conflicting reports on safety, complex legal cases.
Education challenges and successes. Social issues from national campaigns to individual struggles.
ECOWAS politics, global connections, and even, chocolate fruit and volcanoes.
It really shows you that sifting through all these different sources together gives you a much richer picture, maybe a more complicated one, sometimes contradictory, than any single headline ever could.
Yeah, you see so many different things happening all at once across the country, around the world.
Exactly. The sheer simultaneity of it all.
So as you, the listener, process all this, the immense financial figures, the reports of progress, but also the persistent stories of crime, hardship, community struggles, here's maybe a final thought to chew on. How do we make sense of that constant juxtaposition, the big picture claims versus the specific, often difficult realities reported on the ground? What does seeing both side by side tell us about the overall situation?
It's definitely something that lingers after you take in the day's news like this. A question without an easy answer.
Indeed. And that wraps up our deep dive for today.